Yeah.
So he's got, so like I said, he's got a blank slate. Let's give him a chance to see what he can do with it.
Yeah, that can be an opportunity.
And sometimes, you know, of course, it seems the modern theory is all the JUCO transfer, all the transfers, poor kids and all that, trying to assemble something great from the start. But, you know, maybe he needs to look at kids that are really developable and then develop them for over a 3 or so year period and kind of cut a little against the grain in terms of recruiting and teaching. And
I think that'd be a good way to go.
yeah, so, but you're gonna have to be patient with that.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, he got some talent. He came in and beat Carolina the first time he played them.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. He's, we shall see how it works out.
I remember that well. So,
Yeah. We do too.
What have we got? So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
So, Tom, were you saying you'll be going home tomorrow? Is that right? You're on mute. There you go.
Just stay tomorrow to try to get all the information as far as the rehab stuff, and I'll have people with physical therapy come and get me all the details and what I need to be doing, what not to do, and what to do. So, I sure don't want to go backwards.
Don't blame you there.
I offered him a spare bicycle he could ride home from the hospital.
Do what, Blair?
I offered him a bicycle that he could use to ride home from the hospital. Go ahead and get some rehab done.
And he turned it down.
I did.
Turned it down.
I did a lot of physical therapy with the bicycle. I really don't care about getting on bicycles. Once it moves, stable, that's okay. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Cary Rotary Club. We lost a great friend, club member, community leader this past weekend. Howard Manning passed on Saturday, April 2nd. Arrangements are not yet finalized. Once they are, we'll forward them to the club so that we can make appropriate recognition of all of that. Howard was a terrific club member. WRAL said he was a hero of the community. And boy, weren't they right.
Yeah.
Everybody he impacted left the interaction a better person than they were when they started with it. His caring for others, his deep love for the community, his dedication and passion were unmatched. We'll miss his great humor, his friendly smile, and his focused service in the community.
Yep.
During his presidential year, Rotary's theme was "Be a gift to the world." Howard Manning was a gift to the world. He was a gift to our club, and we will carry him with us forward in our hearts. So as we begin our meeting, let us be thankful and grateful for the time that he spent with us, Let him be an inspiration for us in terms of our fellowship, our service, our caring for others. May we send our prayers and support to his family and friends in a time of great sadness. But let us remember all the joy of the times we had with Howard and the things that he brought to us in our lives and spread them as we work within the community. Let's have a moment of silence for Howard Manning. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. Eric Schmidt, can I ask you please to introduce guests and visiting Rotarians today?
Thank you very much, President Bob. We do have several visitors today, and from the Rotary Club of Wilmington is David Brandy. David.
Welcome, David.
And a potential new member, David Straub. David.
Oh, Ted.
Great. Thank you very much for being here. You're both welcome to come back anytime. We appreciate your presence. Have a great day.
Thank you, Eric. Welcome, Ted. Welcome, David. Do we have any miracle moments today? Yes, Rod.
I'll just offer a miracle moment of word of thanks to have Billy Sutton here back with us. Long-time Rotarian, but back with us, for.
Let me get a picture of Billy here at the meeting.
So happy to offer my happy dollar.
All right. Welcome, Billy.
It's a miracle that I haven't sent in the shirt order yet. So this is your last chance if you want to buy a shirt.
All right.
With Rotary Club of Cary.
Rotary at work. Any other miracle moments in the room?
Yep.
Well, why don't you go ahead?
I don't know enough.
That's right. Well, I'll call your attention to our video screen here so that you can see live from Wake Med. Dr. Tom Brooks. That is. Tom, that is dedication to perfect attendance, let me tell you. The audio is a little hard to switch quickly, so I'll just let the group know that Tom had some surgery yesterday. Went really well, right, Tom? Thumbs up?
Yep. Yep.
And he's recovering nicely. Expects to be out of the hospital tomorrow, I believe. So congratulations, Tom. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any others from anyone online? All right. Well, if I can, I'll do just a couple of quick club announcements then as we move forward. I have a little bit of an update on our District Day of Service projects. You'll remember that on the 23rd of April, District 7710 is going to be doing some environmental work around the district. Thanks to Camille Hedrick and her influence at Green Hope High School, there are a large number of students from Green Hope that will be joining us in our projects around the Cary Fire Station. which is great because it gives us an opportunity to extend our project a little bit to the Tammy Lynn Center. I want to thank Rod for forwarding a request that the Tammy Lynn Center has facilities that they also do some spring sprucing up. And it's so, Earth Day is a popular day to do that sort of thing. And so we've now got 3 choices among Rotarians to do some light garden work, supervision, especially of the green. That's not the right word, is it, Camille?
They just want you to-
Coaching and guidance.
They have young muscles and they will do a lot of work. If you
Right.
just get out of the way.
We have smart minds, they have young muscles. That's a great combination experience. So shortly, I'll be distributing a sign up genius where you can choose among those different opportunities to help the environment and participate in that day of service in a way that you desire. Yes, sir.
It's not a miracle moment. But,
That's good, because miracle moments are over.
I know. This is a close miracle moment.
I see.
Just want to let everybody know, my daughter who lives in Sweden and her husband have brought over refugees from Ukraine, right now 20. And so they're taking care of them until all this is settled. And so it's not a miracle, but it's great for those, I'm sure those people from Ukraine think it is.
Thank you for their service. Sounds like she was raised right.
Yes, you are.
And almost.
Attention golfers. It's charity golf tournament season. So if you are a golfer and you have an interest in participating in charity golf tournaments, please, I'm going to call on Harold unexpectedly and ask him to be the central point since he's, I think, the lowest handicap in the room. I'm not sure. But the Old Dominion Golf Tournament, which is the Boys and Girls Home, to benefit the Boys and Girls Home, will be held on June 6th. It will be here at McGregor. The Boyce Brown Golf Tournament, which is a Cary Central fundraiser. I do not have a date or place on that yet, but that's also coming up. We will offer, as we have in the past, a 50% subsidy to golfers to fill those teams. So we've got up to 12 slots to fill across those 2 tournaments. So if you have an interest and are willing to share in the contribution, see Harold and we'll put together some places. Jim, when you were going to get up to share, I thought you were going to mention the Memory Cafe, which I think is next week.
But I have the flyer for the Cary Central.
Got it. How are you set for volunteers?
And that is on May 9th. That's a Monday. I'll give it to Harold.
Okay. With respect to the Memory Cafe, how are you set for volunteers next week?
I'm sorry, what about it?
Memory Cafe is next week.
Yes,
Do you need volunteers?
yes. And we're getting several new couples. So the word's getting out. So we'll probably have 20 or 30 guests. And we need 2 or 3 volunteers from the club.
For next week. So see Jim.
Will be there with the food. So
Yep. So if you have time, see Jim before the end of today and let him know. Finally, in terms of an announcement, it's Rotary grant season. And so we, as a club, have historically supported a number of different initiatives in the Dominican Republic, in the schools, Memory Cafe. We have an opportunity to support any number of projects. And so I would just put the call out to all of our members. I think what we've done has been tremendous, but we can certainly do other things than what we've always done. So if you have an idea of an organization that needs support and would like to talk about how we as a club or the district might support your work with that organization financially, please let one of the board members know so that we can get to work to complete our application for a grant. Grant requests are due on May 1st. So we got a little bit of urgency here to try to get that done. Make sense? All right, without further ado then, can I call on David Coulter to introduce today's speaker? Dave?
Thank you, President Bob.
So I'm pleased to introduce Lynn Minges today to us. She is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association. She's been in this role for the last 10 years, and she works to protect, educate, and promote the diverse interests of North Carolina's hospitality industry. The industry represents more than $27 billion in sales annually and employs 11% of the state's workforce. Prior to her role in this position, she served as Deputy Secretary of Commerce and oversaw the marketing of the state as a business location and a destination for tourism, filmmaking, and sports development in both domestic and international markets. She's received the Order of the Longleaf Pine and has been recognized by the Triangle Business Journal with her as an Outstanding Woman in Business Award. She's a graduate of Peace College and North Carolina State University. So Lynn, welcome.
Thank you all so much. It's great to be here with you today in this very beautiful setting. And it's springtime. I'm so excited. So somebody asked me earlier today at the table what I was going to talk about. And I said, I guess I'm going to talk about COVID and its impact on the business, because on the hospitality industry, because that's all I've been doing since COVID hit in March of 2020. As you all know, COVID had a huge impact on the hospitality industry. Restaurants were closed on March 17th of 2020 and didn't open back up until May 22nd of 2020. So 8 weeks, restaurants were closed, stay-at-home orders were put in place, and though hotels stayed open the majority of the time, they were significantly impacted. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. Let me see if I can get there we go. Okay. But the COVID has had significant impacts on the industry, and through it all, our association, who exist to help restaurants and hotels. By the way, there are about 22,000 restaurants and hotels across North Carolina, about 20,000 food service establishments, so restaurants, et cetera, and about 2,000 lodging properties. Those businesses rely on the work that we do to advocate on their behalf every day. And so when COVID hit, March 17th, I began about a daily conversation, really early March of 2020, with Governor Cooper and his senior leadership team. They would call and give us an update every day and talk about expectations and next steps. And so it became pretty clear to me in mid-March that restaurants were going to be closed. And we began to work with the governor and his team and Dr. Mandy Cohen on what that would look like for restaurants and hotels. So we were very much on the front line. And for nearly 2 years, I've had daily conversations with the administration about our industry. Just to remind you, the first thing we did when restaurants were closed was liability protections for business. North Carolina was one of the first states in the nation that took away the responsibility of businesses. We said, we can't operate businesses. We're going to get sued if somebody gets COVID. So we were one of the first states to get that passed. We were very much on the front line of that. We had all kinds of things. Remember alcohol curfews. They wanted to shut restaurants down or stop alcohol service at 9 o'clock. And I'm like, no. We already got capacity restrictions. You can't shut alcohol down at 9, give us 10. So I was negotiating those kind of things. Mask mandates, huge issue. We were not opposed to mask mandates, but we wanted to make sure that business owners didn't bear the brunt of that. Don't make us enforce that. We can't be the police. There are people who are not going to wear a mask, and we don't want altercations in restaurants in the state. So when Governor Cooper came out with the order, the very day that happened, we had already been working with him for a couple of weeks and his legal team on what that executive order would look like, so that by the day it was announced, if you were a restaurant and you had a sign on the door, you had met the test of notifying people. That was your test. You did not have to go over to the table and arm wrestle people if they didn't want to wear the mask, etc. We negotiated outdoor dining and just on and on and on, but probably, I don't know, 70 executive orders during the pandemic. And we were very much on the front line of all of that conversation. Oops, I'm going the wrong direction. So the first thing we did when restaurants were closed on March 17th, I began to feel it was a surprise to restaurants, because even though I knew it was coming, I couldn't say anything. It was in embargo, very much, on the QT. And so the governor announced it at like noon, St. Patrick's Day. So restaurants had stocked their pantries. They had lots of food in, lots of alcohol, and suddenly things were closed. And so they had to throw out that food. and they displaced on that day over 200,000 North Carolinians. And when David introduced me, he said we employed about 11% of the state's workforce. I don't know what that number is today, but it fell pretty quickly and hard and fast. So you think about those workers, many of them, hourly wage earners who lost their job, couldn't put food on their table, gas in their cars, couldn't keep their cell phones operating. They were in pretty big trouble. So our industry, as hard as it was hit, the one thing I began to get, the calls I began to get from restaurateurs is we've got to do something to help our workers that we're sending home. Remember, the unemployment system in our state was, ill-equipped to handle anything like COVID. And I don't know if you remember back, but I lived it vividly, so I do. There were no unemployment checks going out. So these, hourly workers had nothing. It stopped at the time. So we created the North Carolina Restaurant. It's now the North Carolina Hospitality Workers Relief Fund. And in those 8 weeks, when restaurants were closed, we raised, through the help of many, many companies and many generous donors, $1.5 million. And we set up a grant process. We received applications from workers who had been displaced, and we awarded grants in the amount of $500 a time to restaurant workers, giving out $1.5 million. We also created a program called Count on Me and See. Anybody hear of that? You ever seen that out there? So we knew that when restaurants would reopen on May 22nd, we were going to have a huge problem. And that's because people were scared to eat in restaurants. And even the administration, Dr. Cohen was a little concerned about people's safety in restaurants and, how will we come back? And then the notion that we're going to be bringing workers to come back to serve, to cook in a strange environment. There are new cleaning protocols. We had to keep tables 6 feet apart, no more than 10 at a table. Just on and on and on. There were all these new regulations about operating, and our workers wouldn't know how to operate, and consumers would pick up on that, and health departments and policymakers would know that we didn't. And so we knew it was really important for us to get ahead of it, and we created a training program and trained 60,000 individuals for operating restaurants and other businesses, but particularly restaurants, on safe protocols for operating restaurants before they reopen on May 22nd. So from March 17 to May 22nd, created the Worker Relief Fund and the training portal, online training portal, and had 60,000 workers trained and ready to go to work the day we reopened restaurants. I stood at the dais with the governor the day that restaurants were able to be reopened. We were the first state in the nation to do anything like that. Nobody had ever done that, but we knew that was important, and it served us well during the pandemic. The other thing we did, by the way, I'll tell you that, think about this for a minute. During that 8-week period of time, no money coming into restaurants, the bills kept coming. The lease was due, the mortgage was due, the insurance was due, utilities bills were due. All those the leased equipment bills kept coming in, all that overhead kept coming, but they had no revenue coming in. So they were getting further and further behind. And during the covered COVID period, the hospitality industry lost $5 billion. $5 billion in sales. Like if you looked at the previous 12 months to the 12 months where they were most impacted by COVID, $12 billion in losses. So they had big financial problems, and still do today, quite candidly. This is an industry that I don't think people really understand how hard it's been hit and what the impact is. So we began to really advocate on behalf of our industry. We did a number of things. First of all, we worked with our members of Congress on things like PPP, and we got a kind of exception for restaurants and hotels. They got 2.5 times payroll, where everybody else got, I think it was 1.5 times payroll. So they got a few extra things in PPP, and we did EAGLE and assisted members with all kinds of information. The other thing we did is talk to the media. You see my picture up there? Somebody was talking about the media earlier. It's the part of my job I don't like to do. I don't like to talk to the media, but during COVID, I was doing 5 interviews a day, most of them from my bedroom somewhere, because we were working from home. We couldn't even be in the office, but WRA was calling. We were live Zoom because they wanted to know the impact on restaurants, workers. What are we doing to help workers? How bad is it? Are restaurants safe? And fortunately, we were able to spin that story to talk about, are they safe? Yes, and let us tell you what we're doing. Count on me and see. Workers, yes, our workers are displaced, but we've raised money and we're helping those workers. To try to spin the story, but also to talk about how devastating COVID was for our industry so that we could leverage that with policymakers to get relief for our industry. So as the General Assembly came back into session in January of 2021, that would be, We had prepared for them a policy brief on what it would take for our industry to recover. It was about a 28-page policy brief, and it outlined the impact COVID had had on our workers, the 200 workers that have been displaced on our businesses, 200 workers displaced, $5 billion in losses. And it showed how our industry, restaurants and hotels, have been impacted more significantly than any other industry. And that was true. There was nothing else. You look at grocery stores, they were great. Home repairs, Lowe's, Home Depot, garden centers, all those things were bustling. The economy, cars were selling, the economy was doing really, really well. Restaurants and hotels were taking the brunt of it, both on the employment side and the revenue side. So we made that case. We teed it up to the General Assembly with a long list of asks. And here's kind of some of the wins that we got over there. The first thing was alcohol. Alcohol is just so hard for us in this state, but we were able to play on the sympathy that they had for restaurants and get outdoor dining made permanent. So the governor allowed us to do outdoor dining during the executive order. In North Carolina, I don't know if you know this, but you can't serve alcohol past your footprint. So this facility is permitted right here where you're sitting. If you want to serve alcohol in the parking lot, no can do unless you go get a permit. So we were able to change the law and get some exceptions made for that. That's new in North Carolina. We got social districts. So if in downtown Cary, for example, you want to have a festival, there are beer carts today, but if you want to go into an establishment and get a mixed drink or a beer or a cocktail or a glass of wine from a good restaurant, you can do that and take it onto the street into that festival if your county commission or city council authorizes that. So it's a city by city allowance, but is a way for restaurants to get some incremental new revenue. A lot of municipalities are taking advantage of that. Can you believe walking with a mixed drink on the street in North Carolina? We also had some big, bold asks. And remember, we had over 2 billion media impressions. So all those 5-a-day conversations I was having with the media, they were all about teeing up the case for why we needed help uniquely. Because everybody's hurting. Nobody's hurting like restaurants and hotels. And we just kept talking about that. We pitched to first the governor, and then the Senate, and then the House, a $500 million hospitality business relief grant. Had no prayer we would get it done, but we did. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. We had to go in and ask the state to forgive PPP, give us PPP deductibility. We were one of about 3 states in the nation where if you got a PPP, anybody get one, your businesses? Yeah, if you got a payroll protection plan, you could deduct, you could expend it on overhead or salaries, and you could deduct that expense at the federal level, but North Carolina, they were going to tax you. We're like, that's double dipping. You can't do that. So that was a big fight, but we got that taken away. And that was mostly for restaurants and hotels that were going to be hurt by that. We talked about how bad our workforce had been hurt, and we got $5 billion of federal money for workforce recruitment, a campaign yet to be started because they won't give me the money. But once they do, I mean, it's just the federal government, just takes a long time. We'll be using that $5 million to hopefully help recruit workers back to our industry. And then we engaged our members. And so in an interview earlier today, somebody said, how are you guys so successful? I'm like, I work for 22,000 restaurants and hotels. They're business owners. They pay taxes, they employ people. And when we call them and tell them that they need to call their legislators, they do. So we sent out a lot of calls to action like this to make the phones ring of policymakers so that we could urge them to pass legislation that would offer some support to our industry. And they did. And then we did something pretty clever, I think, thanks to our lobbyists who had great ideas. And that was that in North Carolina, our state government had $5.4 billion in funding through the American Rescue Plan that could be spent at their discretion. And it was designed to help our state recover from COVID. And so, some of that money was spent on schools and infrastructure and broadband and utilities and whatever else. But we were able to get some carve outs for our industry, those things I told you about earlier. But when the legislature, they appointed conferees, some from the House and some from the Senate, and they were behind closed doors, hashing out how they would spend those funds. And we knew that we couldn't get to them. We couldn't, they were, 24/7 almost behind closed doors, and we couldn't make our case. Everybody was making their case. So we began to run thank you campaigns in their district. So you see these conferees on the House side, and you see these conferees on the Senate side, and we began to just run ads in their market, most of them on digital ads, and we're all digital ads. And it just talked about what a great champion Senator Chuck Edwards has been for the hospitality industry, working hard to protect small businesses and jobs. Thank you, Senator Edwards. And we did that for, Jason Sain and Paul Newton and Phil Berger and all these people who were making decisions. And we kept track of the impressions, and people were calling him every day saying, oh my gosh, I had no idea you were doing so much to help the hospital. This is so important. So we gave them, wind at their back, and we were successful in getting a lot across the finish line. So I want to tell you a little bit about our major win, and that is the Business Recovery Grant Program. We are the only state in the nation who has done anything like this. I talk to my peers every day, and people call us like, how in the world did you get this done? Our legislature took out 500 million of that 5 billion that they had available and said, this money is set aside to help restaurants and hotels and bars recover from the pandemic. And the way it will work is a beautiful thing. The way it will work is that you had to be a private sector business, and your receipts, taxable sales, had to be down by 20% during COVID. So the COVID period was, if you took March 19 to February 20, which was pre-COVID, so 12 months pre-COVID, and then you took March 20, which is when COVID hit, through February 21. If your business, your sales, your gross taxable revenue was off by 20%, you got a grant, 10% of your losses. So it worked pretty well. It was clean and simple. Nobody had to ask questions about it. It was pretty simple because guess what? The Department of Revenue already has those numbers. Snoopy's hot dogs, for example, if they have $1 million in sales, they have to report their sales because they collect 7.25% or whatever it is. So the Department of Revenue knows for every single business in the state what their taxable sales were. So it was clean, simple, easy math, 4 questions: name, address of your business, your FIN number, your tax ID number, your gross taxable sales for that period, that first period pre-COVID, second period, subtract it. If it was down by 20% times 10, you got 10%. So it was a beautiful thing. And in March of this month, restaurants and hotels across the state are receiving checks up to $500,000 each. Really, really proud of that. So the first round of checks has gone out. The good news is there is still money left, surprisingly. So many restaurants and many hotels particularly got $500,000. Some hotel owners, some of my members own multiple hotels, so they're getting, $500 per location, or restaurants $500 per location. We knew that the price tag for that grant for our industry was about $300 million. $300 million would satisfy us, and it did. So there's still $200 million left. The Department of Revenue is going to reopen that grant application, and now this will apply to any business. So if you know of a business, a gym, movie theater, auto repair business, anybody, any other kind of business now can get at this money. And if their business was down 20% during that covered COVID period, they can get a check for 10% of that loss. So really great program. We're excited about it. And I'm watching my time because Tim told me he's going to pull me off the stage, but I'm doing pretty good. So all that, things are getting better. Businesses are coming back. You ride by and restaurants look like they're brisk with business. You can't get a reservation. Anybody tried to get a reservation, but you can't get in a restaurant. You can't get a hotel room, but there's more to that story than meets the eye. They're doing better, but they're not out of the woods yet. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, new variants, consumer confidence, inflation, labor shortages, mounting debts, and you can just see the list of all the challenges they're facing. So let me tell you what's happening. So how are restaurants adapting to the new environment? They're limiting the hours of operation. So they're shortening their hours of operation during the day. Many restaurants that used to be open at lunch are no more. They're closing 2 or 3 days a week. Maybe they only closed on a Monday night. Now they're off, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Monday to Wednesday they're closing. So they've shortened their hours of operation. That's almost universal. Most every restaurant is doing that. Even the quick serves, the Bojangles, the Hardee's, the McDonald's, they're not even opening their dining rooms. So you go by and the line is wrapped around the outside, but you can't even go in and eat most times. They tell me that if they have staff, if they look at a shift and they've got staff, they will open the dining room, but they can save labor because they don't have enough to meet their demands, and they're closing their dining room. So it's a big change and something we're going to be dealing with for a while. So reducing dining capacity. Even some of your white table restaurants are taking tables out. So that's why I say if you call to get a reservation, you'll think, wow, they're busy. I can't even get in my favorite restaurant. It's because they've only got half the tables open. And again, this is not the government reducing their capacity, right? That was the problem during COVID. Oh, and they screamed about it. We can't reduce our capacity. Now, the government says you can have as many people as you want, but they don't have people to serve. So they're reducing their capacity in restaurants. So, you know, that's a challenge. Let's think of that, half the capacity, half the money. They are now using a lot of, you know, self-ordering concepts. Anybody been in where they don't have a menu printed anymore? You have to use a QR code. That's pretty common. I'm getting more comfortable with that. They're doing that for two reasons. First of all, they can't print a menu for you because they don't even know what they're going to be able to get to serve you today. They're not sure if they can get chicken wings or chicken breast or sausage, whatever it is. They're not sure they're going to be able to get it because they're having supply chain challenges. So the QR code allows them to create different menu items every day. And also they run out of things, they take it off the menu. So that's a cost savings, labor issue. And also when you order, there's nobody running that order, you know, writing it down and running it back to the back room. It's going immediately to the back and they're preparing your food. So these are kind of technologies we're going to see continue in the future. There are a lot of delivery only concepts right now. Many of the restaurants you may order from on Uber Eats or DoorDash or, you know, whatever else you order those on, those restaurants don't exist. They're not a building. They're not a facility. In some cases, they're operating out of mobile units in parking lots. They're in rural areas or in commercial spaces, warehouse districts where they go set up a kitchen and there's no storefront. You can never go and eat in that restaurant, but you can order. And even some of the concepts, you know, you may order from them, but that food may not be prepared in that facility. It may be prepared at one of these off-location facilities, ghost kitchens. So I think we're going to continue to see that going. Commodity prices continue to escalate. Beef has gone up something like 25% in the past year. Chicken is due to go up another 15%. It's already gone up. Prices, and they call them proteins. Somebody said, what is a protein? Proteins, you know, meats are escalating. The war in Ukraine is causing a shortage on flour. So breads, pizza, you think of your hot dogs, hamburgers, all of those are going to go up because the beef prices are going up, but now the wheat costs are going up. So if you think about the biggest cost for restaurants, 70 cents on every dollar goes to labor, occupancy, and food cost. And with all that increasing, there's nowhere to go but increase menu prices. And that's the one thing a restaurant doesn't want to do. The other side of that is there's a saturation point for consumers. How much will consumers pay as they too are facing inflation? So, you know, it's really a tough time. And so they're going to begin to employ more and more technology. We were talking earlier about robotics. A lot of companies now are experimenting with robotics in the kitchen, you know, to streamline things. Some of my members, a couple of them are using robotics to bring the food to your table. So a waiter would come and greet it at table 9, but then serve it to you. So there's a little bit of that taking place. And then I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but there is a flight of some, you know, really great restaurants to suburbs where maybe rent is higher, occupancy is higher. But the other thing is that's where you are, because today we're not seeing the rush of people to downtown Raleigh. They used to eat lunch in those restaurants downtown, and they used to eat dinner after work, and they used to go for drinks after work. Well, guess what? People are working from home, and a lot of that's not coming back. So we're seeing a lot of these, you know, great chefs who are looking to expand restaurants moving to the suburbs, Clayton, Nightdale, just great restaurants moving in down there at Cary. So I think you're going to continue to see that happening. Hotels briefly, and then I'm done because he's going to move me off the stage. Hotels are doing the same thing. They're taking rooms out of inventory. The Umstead Hotel, which has a Cary address, I'll just tell you, has taken a number of rooms out of inventory. So if you call there, you've got a guest in town, you want to put them up there, they may be full. They're not really full. They're not selling all their hotel rooms. They just don't have staff to staff them. So they're only selling, you know, half the rooms that they have, maybe more than half now, but that's a big trend. Almost every hotel I know are taking rooms out of inventory. In some cases, they've been able to raise their room prices, and they're actually making more money by taking rooms out of inventory because labor costs are escalating. That's hard for me to believe. But if they don't have to clean the room and service the room, they can sell half the rooms, reduce their labor cost, raise the rate on the room, and make just as much money. It's a crazy concept, but that's what's happening. You're going to see a whole lot more keys to your phone. You know, I go to check in a Marriott, get off the plane, It sends me, it auto checks me in, sends me my room key, assigns me to room 301. I go in, swipe my key, go in. I never have to go to a front desk. Nobody has to take care of me. And then I order room service, lunch, and a robot's going to come up and ring my doorbell and deliver my lunch to me in my room. So, you know, these are the kind of things that are real world. And then as I was sharing at the table earlier, I checked into a hotel in Tallahassee last week. I haven't been traveling a whole lot because of COVID and a lot of things are canceled. I'm spending my life on Zoom lately. I checked into a hotel and the front desk lady said, welcome to the, you know, Hilton. She's Hilton Tallahassee. And she said, we have no room service. And she said, if you want your trash dumped, you can call us and we'll send somebody up to do that. Otherwise, you're on your own. She didn't say that part, but that's essentially what she was saying. So those are the trends going forward. And with that, I think that concludes my presentation. I did okay.
Not that bad at all, young
Thank
lady.
you all. Thank you.
I don't know about you guys, but if I were her agent, I'd be telling her she ought to be asking for a raise. That's an amazing job and it's an excellent presentation as well, all right? In addition to giving you orders, I also give you gifts.
Oh, thank you.
And we like it as a thank you for being here. These are cards that are done by one of our residents. Jerry's not here today, but Jerry Miller creates all these things.
Yes.
Now, you know, Jerry?
Thank you. I do.
But
Very much.
thank
I'm a
you.
fan.
Well done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn, for your insights. Thank you, Tim, for playing the villain. I appreciate that. But it is interesting, isn't it, that you know, we've got labor shortage, labor savings, technology efficiency, technology displacing labor, all those challenges that your constituents face. So really appreciate you sharing your insights and your leadership of the group. Coming up, I was all ready to help all of these people celebrate their birthdays, but I don't see everybody. So let me just go through the list. April 6th, I guess is tomorrow, Doug McGlam will celebrate 18 years with the Cary Rotary Club. Ross Very is here. Attaway, Ross. Ross will celebrate 2 years with the club. And those are our days. So that's a hint that I bet you there's more going on in the lives of our Rotarians than we necessarily know. The secret lives of Cary Rotary Club. So take advantage. Last week I talked a little bit about accessing DACDB on your phone. Keep your data up to date so that we can embarrass you when it's time to celebrate a special day. Next week's program, we have Trey Allen to join us. He is the General Counsel for the North Carolina Administrative Office of Courts. So he'll come and speak to us about the process of the legal process in North Carolina. Thank you, David, for arranging that. In our meal next week will be sweet and sour pork with jasmine rice and broccoli. In 2 weeks, David's also arranged to have Bernie Mann, who's the publisher of Our State magazine, come and speak to us. Not only does he have a great magazine, he's a great business person. I hope he tells some of the stories about how he's done with that magazine in a pretty competitive environment. So looking forward to that. I do want to thank Ted, you for joining us today. David, we're thrilled to have you back with us. Thank you for joining us. Tom, thank you for joining us online. We appreciate you as always. And so as we leave our meeting today, can I call on Rod Brooks to lead us out on the four-way test?
Four-way test. We think, say, or do.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial